Hey everybody, good afternoon. We wanted to send out a recording to just get you caught up to speed on Kaseya and Print Nightmare. We know with being short notice, it would have been difficult to get everybody on a webinar. So we wanted to record this and shoot it off. You guys can view it at your leisure. And of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. What we want to talk about is what happened with Kaseya, what happened, what's going on with Print Nightmare as well. Some talking points for you for if your customers ask you about it, and what does it mean short term, long term, where we're going in the future. So with that said, we'll dive right into it, and we'll start with Kaseya. So what happened with Kaseya? Kaseya, if you don't know, they provide software and services for MSPs to use. One of their appliances, they call it the VSA appliance. It's sort of the equivalent of our Enable server. It runs their remote monitoring and management software. Those got compromised. The number right now is more or less 60 MSPs, which through those 60 MSPs led to malware being distributed to around 1,500 organizations. It ended up being a huge ransom. I think it's up at $70 million is that they're asking for. But through a bunch of MSP appliances, a number of end user customers got compromised. Now, this happened on July 2nd, right before the long weekend. Exactly how the appliances were compromised, we don't know. Early indications say it's a 0-day through the logins. It let them log in and run arbitrary code. These appliances do also run on top of Windows, so it's possible that there was something got into the Windows appliances and then through those got into Kaseya. Point is, we don't know yet. Everybody's keeping an eye on it. Kaseya has had these MSPs bring these appliances offline. They have a patch, but they're not actually applying that. They're not releasing that patch until July 11th. And one very important thing, Cinch IT was not affected in any way. We don't use any Kaseya appliances. So in summary, a bunch of MSPs got hacked through, from what we can tell, no fault of the MSPs because it was a 0-day on a software that they use. But that software did allow the attackers to reach down into the MSP's customers. This is a worst case scenario for those MSPs. I do not envy them at all. And what's going on with Print Nightmare? Print Nightmare is a vulnerability within printing of Windows. Basically affects every version of Windows from desktops to servers. The vulnerability is specifically within the print server, the print spooler service, which is on by default, and it's all over the place. Good news is somebody would have to be on the network, so it's not publicly accessible, which is huge. Patches were released this week, and they're actually scheduled to be installed tonight across the board for us. We've actually been following up because there was an initial exploit back in June. We've been following up on that, have been applying patches as they've been released, and with the latest patches that came out this week, those have already been approved and those are already scheduled to be installed. And by the time you watch this video, they might already be installed on the. So we're staying on top of them. We're following up twice a day to make sure that those patches are applied. There was a workaround, I put that in air quotes, that functionally involved completely disabling printing, which, as you can imagine, not very practical for a lot of customers. So that's Print Nightmare. Good news is Print Nightmare is largely going to be handled once these patches get installed. So what about Enable? Enable is our RMM. Right, these Kaseya VSA appliances, they're very similar to our N-Central or our Enable appliance that we have up in the cloud. If something happened to that Enable appliance, it would be very bad for us. Good news though, one, the Enable appliance runs on a hardened version of Linux, so it's not as vulnerable as like a Windows box. We restrict access to it from specific networks. There's a separate like backend administrative console that is not publicly accessible, and we keep it very well up to date. We stay on top. If there's any patch related to anything security, it gets installed almost immediately. We delay some general bug fixes that might be a little NA. We'll delay those a little bit because too many updates can cause other issues. But any security update we see, we apply almost within 24 hours. So those are some mitigating factors for us. When we have some additional info from Enable, we'll of course pass it along. But right now, everybody is still in the wait and see mode. What you may get from some customers are questions about our agents. Obviously, through the Kaseya agent, these end customers got hacked, right? Their provider that they depend on was the vector in which they got attacked. Are Enable security agents are Enable agents a risk? Yes, but everything is a security risk. RMM tools like Enable and Kaseya, any other RMM tool, Datto RMM, they all allow this level of access. But there's even quote unquote purely good things. So Sentinel-1, for example, it's the EDR we use. Webroot, it's a very common antivirus. All of these things allow remote command line. They allow some sort of always-on connectivity. These are all risks. Everything that touches your computer is a risk. If you have a cleaning service, that's a risk. If you plug in thumb drives, that's a risk. If you use LogMe and TeamViewer, go to my PC. All of that are risks. So when a customer asks you, yes, it is a risk, but there's a huge benefit. I pulled up a quick picture here of our SLIC. I don't have to go through line by line here, but everything in red is controlled by the agent. It does our monitoring. It allows us to respond automatically to issues that pop up on people's computers. It lets us remote in quickly without trying to walk a customer through doing a screen sharing session. It deploys our antivirus. It allows us to centrally manage antivirus, push out policies, lock out computers when an employee leaves. It runs the EDR. It does the backups. They're hugely powerful tools, and like any tool, it's there's risk involved when it's used improperly. It's a question you may get from some of your customers, and if you tell them it's not a risk, that's a lie. Every tool you use is a risk. Every piece of software you put on your computer is a risk, but you weigh the benefits against the cons, and the benefits greatly outweigh the cons. I can tell you that an MSP cannot do their job without an RMM tool. So they are a risk, but it's well worth the trouble because of the level of support and control it allows us to do on behalf of the customer. So what else can we do? More backups and more business continuity. Right? There's not much you can do against a 0 day, right? You can't patch against a 0 day because it's unknown. So what can you do? One, you can make sure your customers have good business continuity in place, right? If they've got a server, get them an Axient, get them a Datto. Make sure that they have a failover server that we can recover from, right? Make sure that they have everything backed up that they need. Let's make sure 365 is backed up. Let's make sure their OneDrive is backed up, or the Google Drive, right? If their files get ransomware and that ransom uploads into OneDrive, well then OneDrive's ransomware. So let's put backups on everything. Back up the server. Get a BCDR appliance. Let's get SaaS backup. And we've actually got something new as well. We were waiting to roll it out, but it's related to this, right? Because the only thing you can really do against ransomware, other than prevent it, is to be able to recover from it. So we have another backup tool to put in your toolbox, right? A lot of customers can't afford to throw Axient or Datto or full MSP backup on every device in their system. So we do have a new line that is just for the documents. It's called Enable Backup for Documents. So what is it? It's inexpensive file backups for workstations and laptops. It's Windows only. It's automated twice daily. The device has to be on, and we add it company-wide. You guys sell it. We turn it on for the company. Every workstation gets this backup. That's the gist. So how does it work? It's installed company-wide, twice a day as long as it's on. It backs up the entire drive, but by a file extension. There's like 1,000 file extensions. What you need to know is it's going to do all the Office docs. It's going to do PDFs and CSV files. It'll do Access databases. One thing that's important to note is that they can be stored anywhere, right? Some of these user or file level backups might be restricted to the user folder. This one searches the whole drive and it looks for common office documents, and it backs those up. Um, I'm actually going to skip ahead. What doesn't it back up? Pictures. Um, as you can imagine, some customers will have tens, if not hundreds, of gigs of photos. It's not a photo backup service, right? So if somebody's like, "Oh shoot, I need a way to back up all my photos," this one won't work. We can use some of the other the other backup options for it. It won't do the operating system, right? That's the full enable backup. Full image based backup is more expensive than file backups, and it doesn't back up files that are currently open. It's kind of like a copy paste, but it can't copy and paste those files that are open, and it won't do removable drives. This is meant to be an inexpensive, easy, automated way to back up, but it is not as robust as full backup solutions like the full MSP backup, like an Accent, like a Datto. But it's huge cost savings. So why should a customer use it? Anybody where the customer is not 100% perfect on saving things to the server, OneDrive, G Suite, that means everybody, right? If you've got people that save some documents in a folder on their C drive, right? Or if they have a server, but they save stuff to their My Documents instead of the map drive. This helps all of those people, right? If let's say they're using OneDrive and SharePoint, but they don't save things to those folders for some reason, they can add it. Even if all of these things happen, it adds as a safety net, and it's an inexpensive solution, which you'll see in just a second, to help catch those outliers or catch things that the other backups may have missed. So I said it was inexpensive. How inexpensive? Your cost $3 a workstation, MSRP $5 a workstation. It's very simple. $2 device for getting it to the customer. We handle the rest. It's applied company wide. There's no speed vaults. There's nothing like that the regional teams have to be involved with. We turn it on. It gets on automatically. NOC will keep track of failed or missing backups. You guys might see something from us. It's like, hey, this device hasn't backed up in 45 days. Is it still a real device? If not, let's get rid of it. But we sort of do that anyways. So it's very, very, very minimal, almost virtually no work required by the regional teams other than getting customer buy-in. And then you make a couple bucks per device. As you can imagine, you get a few hundred devices on there. It's easy money. And so we'll move on to how we protect ourselves moving forward. The entire industry's on crazy high alert. This is the second supply chain attack. And it's not necessarily a supply chain attack against Kaseya. They said that their source code wasn't compromised, but from the business's perspective, it's a supply chain attack, right? Something down the road that they had no control over got compromised, and that's why they got compromised. SolarWinds, which is the parent company of Enable, obviously had that breach right around the new year. So they went through and they audited everything. Now every other MSP provider or every other company that provides software to MSPs is going to double back again. Everybody's going crazy. Some things that we ourselves are doing. Cinch IT is starting the process to get SOC 2 certified. We audit ourselves very routinely, but we're bringing in some big hitters on the auditing team. The Franchise Advisory Council actually voted on a price increase recently in order to get us SOC certified. That'll, one, improve our security, two, allow us to advertise that we're SOC 2 certified and let you guys go up market. And for step 3, in addition to the SOC and the routine auditing we always do, we are always looking to add more layers. You guys have seen the amount of MFA that I make you do. That's not going away anytime soon. We're always looking to add layers and always looking to add more security. We're staying on top of things. We're attending webinars. We're on more mailing lists than I can count, because we understand that if Cinch gets breached, it's worst case scenario for everybody. So we do everything in our power to prevent that from happening. We're staying on top. Staying on top of our vendors, making sure they're staying on top of their stuff. We're doing everything within our power to make sure that doesn't happen. So normally I would open this up to Q&A, but I'm talking to myself. So I don't have any questions for me. If you guys have questions for me, shoot them over. Happy to do an interactive webinar. maybe in a couple weeks, hopefully we'll get more concrete info. Like I said, there's still a lot of unknowns. But if you have any immediate concerns, if your customers have any concerns, and you try to explain the pros of us having our agents on there, or anything like that. If you need help, reach out to your coaches, both tech and sales, and we'll help give you some talking points. But that's all I have for you. So I'll catch you guys on the next one.